Thank you so much for giving me the honor to present to you. This is, to be honest, is my third time I've been presenting for you. The last two times has been about circular economy. But of course, circular economy is not an area of itself. It is a tool to be used to enable different kind of solutions for problems. And I will come back to that when it comes to the conclusions, how we can solve problems when it comes to water management also today. The theme for my speech is from wastewater treatment plants to resource plants. And of course, the topic is, can trade contribute or technology or both? Besides the work at ICC, where I'm chairing the global working group on circular economy, I'm also a member of the board of Water Europe. I'm also elected member of UNEP's Global Partnership on Nutrient Management Steering Committee. The objective is to support countries around the world with phosphorus and nutrient management. I'm also a member of Seaweed's World Water Week Scientific Program Committee. I also heard that you tomorrow will speak about the construction sector. I'm also president for EURIC, the recyclers organization in Europe's construction and demolition branch. So this is a very important topic for us. I will start with saying that I truly believe that if we can convert today's wastewater treatment plant doing bad things less bad, instead of focusing enabling the use of technology and new legislation, we can then start produce a lot of new resources. I will come back to these two technologies that are examples of technology that already exist that will implement huge changes how we see on today's wastewater treatment plants. It will boost the possibility to produce much more water for industry and agriculture use. It will boost the potential to produce much more energy, and of course, nitrogen and phosphorus. And it also supports that we reduce the risk of threatening our ecosystems. I was honored to present for World Customs Organization in 2022 how harmonized systems can also support when it comes to trade, how this can happen. And the theme of that speech was that not only rich people should be able to buy eggs in the future. So this very much relates to the food sector. March this year, I was invited by the European Commission as the example of how the world can create water resilience with technology. Later in that evening, I put on the local news channel in Nairobi. And of course, there was an interesting interview with one woman speaking about that the cost of eggs has increased with 300%. And there's one reason. If you can't add on phosphorus, feed phosphorus to the egg, the chicken that produces the egg, you will reduce the production and the cost will increase. I will come back to that later. But first, talk a little bit about, I'm going the wrong direction. Talk a little bit about the challenges that we see. And we start first with the global water crisis. What are we facing? Well, to be honest, there are a lot of people that can't even meet their needs on a daily basis when it comes to water. And this, of course, is a fact. I will not go into the details in each of those points. You have reference in each of those columns. You can see by yourself. But we really see a big challenge going forward. And of course, the more the temperature increase, the bigger are the challenge. And as always, it is the poor countries that are suffering the most. In the rich countries, it will lead to inflation and rapidly cost. So we are really facing a huge problem. And the problem is really that we don't have access to fresh water. Only 0.5% of the water that we use are fresh water, and that are getting too scarce, too dirty, or too polluted. So we need to do something. Of course, one way will be to make sure that we then desalt the water, but that will need huge cost when it comes to energy to desalt the water. And also the problem is that the brine, the leftover, can't be emitted out. I will present a technology in the annex that has the potential to do that, but still we talk about huge costs. So this will only be the richest country that has the potential to do this. The water supplies in our glaciers and other reserves are also depleting due to the higher temperature that we are facing. So in the long-term perspective, of course, Himalaya and the Andes and so forth, you are threatened in the long-term perspective if we don't make sure that we tackle the climate crisis. Sea level increases will also affect that more and more the coastal areas The fresh water will then face a challenge with the salt water coming in. And of course, this is already happening today, so it's a huge problem. And only if it can reduce the temperature rise from 2 to 1.5 degree, we see that there is a huge support in how many people that can then sustain themselves. Water quality is also affected heavily. And here we talk about the problem with pathogens, pesticides, but also eutrophication. I will come back to eutrophication later. And climate change, population growth, and the increase of water scarcity will push a heavy burden on the food supply. And we already seen that the last couple of years, but it is increasing all the time. The water-related hazards that we see, that we see in Europe, that we see in Asia, we see in all parts of the world, are increasing. And the weather effects when it comes to flooding and extreme drought is a problem. The big thing when it comes to flooding is very hard to do something about with infrastructure. But with, of course, how we serve our ecosystem will be the most important part when it comes to flooding. When it comes to droughts, there's a lot of things we can do, and I will come back to that. I would also say that water-related disasters has dominated the list of disasters over the past 50 years and account for almost 70% of all death-related natural disasters. So this is a huge challenge. And since already 2000, the flood-related disasters have risen 134% compared with the 2 previous decades. Most of the flooding, death, and economic losses were recorded in Asia, and the number and duration of droughts also increased by 29% over the same period. Most drought-related death occurred in Africa. So we are in a severe situation, and if I talk with risks that are really important to stress, we know that many of the water-related systems where we get our fresh water from are having a geopolitical tension, meaning that many areas are dependent on the other countries' land management, how you are using forestation or deforestation. Then, of course, we have a challenge now we're already facing. Insurance, the coastal areas, it's some parts of the world is impossible to insurance, either industry, but also housing. And of course, there's a huge depreciation of economic value. I saw an article from US only yesterday about that this is happening now, and this will happen even more going forward. And of course, the main thing that we'll face going forward that will really stress our economies all over the world are the food supply risk. And there are a lot of more things. Then, of course, what can we do about it? Then we talk about, and here, to be honest, this is a list directly from Human Water. And of course, we can do a lot when it comes to making sure that we use our ecosystems in a better way. Natural buffers, carbon storage, harvesting rainwater. I was a member of UN Water Aid for many years, and of course visited different parts of Africa where harvesting rainwater became a key component for the smallholders to produce more food. But of course, this is something that we need to do even more. But then, of course, making sure that the agriculture becomes more climate smart and more water smart is important. But again, all of those activities are on local, national level. The key component I would like to raise here is the last point, the reusing of wastewater. And this is something that is a low-hanging fruit that is possible to do, that doesn't have any direct impact on the agriculture in itself. And when it comes to converting today's wastewater into resource plants, we see that there is a lot of interest from different organizations. European Environmental Investment Bank invests a lot of money in these types of projects all over the world. And of course, this is a report from the World Bank Group about the situation in Latin America and the Caribbean. They point to the same thing. We need to use the resources that we have in wastewater much more going forward. The same when it comes to environmental organizations like UNEP. And this is a report from last year, the wastewater and nutrient management. And below we have a report from the European Environmental Agency the year before, from 2022, saying exactly the same thing. We need to make sure that we start to convert our thinking from wastewater to resource plants thinking. From ICC side, we did also push for this at the COP28, and the 5 key enablers that we pushed for to be included in the final text and final agreement had a lot to do with circularity, but one key component was the access to water. And this is very important for industries all over the world to have access when we are producing more resources that are needed. And the future economy will be much more locally produced when we have more circular processes implemented. But then the access to fresh water will be key. If we talk about the challenges, environmental challenges, on the left-hand side, you have maps of 3 status when it comes to the current status or on year 2000 about the challenges when it comes to eutrophication. And I'd like to mention when I was moderating a session at the UN Water Conference last March, I put on the CNN channel in the evening. And the headline was that, sorry, people in Florida, this year you can't take a swim in the ocean because there's too much cyanobacteria in the ocean, too much phosphorus and nitrogen in the Mexican Bay. And here we see that the Mexican Bay are today in yellow. It's now becoming orange, meaning that to be able to produce food in the Mexican Bay going forward will be threatened. We see the same thing when it comes to Latin America. Today green, and will be green also in 2030. But in 2050, if we doesn't do anything, the aquaculture will be threatened in the whole Western South America. We see it in the western part of Africa. We see it, of course, surrounding India and in Asia. And there we have a severe problem if we can't produce food in those areas. When it comes to UN and their prognosis, they have said that, well, 30% of the global fertilizers demand can be reached with recirculation of wastewater. I would like to challenge that number, and I will come back to that with the technology that we have developed that can boost the production, recirculation of nutrients much more. But of course, we need them to be allowed to trade and use the fertilizers. And this is a challenge because we have different kind of legislation in different countries. And there I think WTO can do a lot of difference. And I would especially target the situation when it comes to phosphorus, because phosphorus is crucial for food production. So today, the biggest reserve, the only reserve in the world that will last more after 2100 is from Morocco. Today, the production are mainly in US, Morocco together with China. And on the right-hand side, you have a chart over how many years that are expected, these reserves are expected to last. And again, the only reserve that really lasts very long is the Moroccan reserve. When it comes to food production and water, I have here taken the 9 planetary boundaries as an example and highlight the 5 dimensions that are directly related to water issues on food production. And of course, I will especially target the biochemical flows, the phosphorus and the nitrogen flow, and what can be done. And when it comes to the phosphorus issue, and this is from our Phosphorus Future, and Dr. Will Brownlee, together with 39 other scientists that in year 2022 presented the big thing about how we are threatened, how the life is threatened if we don't manage our phosphorus in a better way. And of course, without phosphorus added to the food production, we will reduce our food production with at least 50% according to the scientists. At the same time, we see that today's management of water, I already talked about the Mexican Bay and the challenge there with agriculture and the insufficient way of treating the wastewater is a problem. Here's another example from Asia, where too much phosphorus in the water causes huge amount of eutrophication. And of course, we see that only way forward is to make sure that we have better food production, that we have better clean waters, and of course, that we also support healthier people and greater biodiversity. And again, circularity will be the key component according to the report. And the potential are much bigger than this 11% and even bigger than the 20% that are highlighted in the report. The two solutions I would like to highlight when it comes to creating a resource treatment plant is first our innovation when it comes to recovering of ammonia, or what some scientists have called white ammonia. It means that we recirculate the ammonia from the react water phase. This will be able to boost the energy production in the wastewater treatment plants, or sorry, the resource plants. At the same time, we have the potential to then also take at least 30% of the ammonia and directly produce a nitrogen fertilizer. And this should be implemented in each and every resource treatment facility around the world. It will also lead to local production of biogas and boost other energy production as well. A very good thing with this is if you implement this solution, it will also eliminate the risk of nitrous oxide emissions. When it comes to phosphorus, we take that from the sewage sludge. So the objective for resource plants is to maximize how much phosphorus that are then put into a sewage. And here in the end, we will not have any waste. Everything will be able to be reused. The heavy metals will be sent to the smelter, so the copper will become a new copper cable, as an example. But the most important part is the phosphorus. And here we are today now in discussion with Canada due to that European legislation, because the two first factories will be set up in Sweden and in Germany. But European legislation today doesn't allow the use of phosphorus based on quality. It's the region that determines what we should use. But Canada has another legislation, so we are aiming to sell the first feed phosphate quality to a Canadian producer. And again, here is a very important part that trade can do, because if we can get the full value of the phosphorus, the cost for the cities to implement this or to treat the sewage sludge will be very low, even the potential to generate an income. So again, utilize the full value and will reduce the risk. Another important part, if you're going to have a resource treatment plant, is that you need to then remove contaminants. We do that in the sewage sludge, so that's not an issue. But in the water, of course, we need to remove the microplastics, the other parts like medicine. But one very important thing that we need to take care of is PFAS. And I especially discussed before the session with UNEP, and I wanted me to highlight the PFAS situation. And PFAS is today everywhere. And therefore, if we're going to reuse the water, we need to eliminate the risk of contaminating the water with PFAS. Here we have now 2 installations in Flanders, in Belgium, and that due to that Flanders has the strictest regulation when it comes to PFAS in wastewater. And our solution then can collect between 95 to 99% of PFAS, both short and long versions from the wastewater. And of course, this is a key component, as I said, to implement new solutions for great circularity when it comes to water as well. In the annex, you will find some other techniques. The technique I mentioned about how we can then also take care of the brine if you decide to desalt your water. We have also a solution where in Norway we have developed a solution to catch fish poo, fish sludge, and there's huge amount of energy that could be utilized. Again, here we need to have the Norwegian government to, as Germany and Austria has done, put a demand on phosphorus recovery. And if that will be in place, we will be better off. An interesting part is that the UNEP Global Partnership on Nutrient Management, together with European Sustainable Phosphorus Platform, are coordinating a work between Europe and Chile next year, and starting already this year, about how the aquaculture can be more sustainable. And of course, this is very important also for the future, to make sure that the fish poo and the fish sludge doesn't emit into the coastal areas. I stop there.
Thank you very much for that extremely interesting